Right, okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. My name is Mike Butcher. I am the editor-at-large for TechCrunch, which is a little news website from Silicon Valley. It's just like at school, isn't it? Nobody wants to sit at the front. It's like, what's going on here? What have I got? What am I, chopped liver? How's everybody going, all right? Yeah, thank God for coffee and croissants in the morning. I must admit, though, I was chomping on my croissant as I walked past the offices of Cambridge Analytica, just up the road, with the press photographers out there. Thought to myself, big data. Yeah, I'm going to an IoT event, right. But this is actually the nice type of big data, which is going to make the world a better place properly, because one of the big things about IoT is that it's a very collegiate industry. It requires not just crazy startups and social networks, which is a whole other industry, but it really does require huge amounts of cooperation between innovators, corporates, industry, you name it. And that's sort of the theme of today. So it's kind of a pleasure for me to be in a collegiate environment in that sense. And we're delighted to be talking today about the cohort that's come out of the IoT tribe, specifically the northern tribes, who are always the more difficult, I remember, if I remember my history, but also the most fearsome. So we're going to hear about that. And to kick off the proceedings today is Tanya Suarez, who's the head of our IoT tribe. So let's hear from her. Big round of applause, everybody.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks everyone for joining us here today. Today is the culmination of a lot of hard work from obviously the team, but most importantly the startups and the mentors that have been supporting them over the past 3 months. We've been working with startups for 3 to 4 years now. First of all, in R&D mode, we've run acceleration programs across Madrid, Dublin, Zoetermeer, Vilnius. And when the time came to turn this into a commercial proposition, we very much wanted to do something in the UK. But rather than come to London, which is where a lot of accelerators, some very good friends are running accelerators here, we decided to go somewhere that was much closer to industry. And we had a whole load of conversations with some really interesting people, some very well-backed people. But the place that had absolutely understood what we were trying to do was, funnily enough, Barnsley. So there are some representatives here from Barnsley, but apart from them, who knows where Barnsley is? That's not bad, actually. Well, actually, a few startups there, so they don't really count either. But just so you know, so Manchester here, Pennine's here, and Barnsley on this side. So it is actually quite an unlikely place to have an accelerator, but it has a whole load of things that we would find it difficult to find anywhere else. So first of all, housing. So for startups coming from elsewhere, the cost of living in Barnsley is actually a lot more reasonable than it is in London. Secondly, the sheer interest from the local community and the ecosystem to do something different, to really embrace IoT and technology, that was something that was actually quite special. So we weren't just another accelerator, we weren't just another cohort of wannabe startups wanting to scale. There was a real interest in welcoming the people, the founders and their businesses, and trying to build lasting links in the local community. And just very, very quickly, this wouldn't have been possible, of course, without our partners. So we are, first and foremost, an equity-free accelerator. There are lots of models of accelerators, but we believe that the cap tables of the startups should remain intact for people like you, all the investors in the room, so you can come in and negotiate with the startups and find the right valuation for you. Being equity-free means that we have to fund the program through other means. So we have a mixture of public and private funding sources. So obviously, public funder, Innovate UK, but then we have some corporate partners. And the reason we have corporate partners is because we believe that the best way to scale the startups and help them with their businesses is to find valuable business propositions that can really integrate whatever it is they're offering into much wider ecosystems. By proving their value there, that's really where there are going to be opportunities for getting new contracts, distribution channels, and even investment. So we're really, really happy to be working with our anchor sponsor, Rolls-Royce, who have embraced the idea of, yes, they do have talented people in the company. They've been they were virtually the first hardware as a service company in the world. But they also understand that not all the talent is inside their own company, and they need to go outside to a broader ecosystem to access the next big thing. So this is really important for us, ensuring that the startups are able to tap into global ecosystems. Of course, you have to start by proving a concept in a controlled environment, if you like. But once that's done, really the best way to growth is through environments that give you access to lots of different business ecosystems and regulations and basically supply chains. And that's what we've been doing over the past 3 months. So just a few words on things that we've done before. We've already run a number of acceleration programs, and this cohort will be added to the over 130 startups that we've had come through the program before. We have some alumni in the room as well, and this is really going to the heart of what we want to do. We want to create a tribe, so somebody that comes into the program, if they want, we will continue to have them within our ecosystem and our networks, and we will continue to help them wherever it is we can. The program itself, the core of the program has lasted for 12 weeks up in Barnsley. So we've had everything from labs through to hardware and software support. Luca and his team have done a really good job of keeping all the energy up in Barnsley. As you know, or some of you will know, that running a startup is anything but easy. You know, when you're not looking for funds, you're kind of solving technical problems, you're looking for clients, you're looking for additional team members. There's a lot to do there. And over the 12-week period, hopefully we will have helped them solve some of the challenges that they found. The other thing here is, I think, the really interesting one. We took a small part of the cohort over to Singapore, and that's been an amazing experience. We've come back with term sheets signed from an angel investor. Last night, one of the startups had an industrial investor confirming something probably in the region of $1 million. So there's been lots of concrete things to come out of the program, and there'll be more that continue to solidify and become more concrete in the coming months. So just very briefly, here are some of the startups. In fact, these are all the startups that were on the program. We started off with 10 and ended up with 9. We'll be hearing from 7 of them today. And just to give you a little bit of a flavor of things we've done. So we've traveled 112,000 kilometers together. We've hosted 8 events, most of them up in the north of England, which has been really great because it's enabled us to have that contact with a local ecosystem, not just in Barnsley, but also in Sheffield, in Manchester, and we hope to continue embedding IoT Tribe in everything we do as the months go on. We've provided over 4,600 engineering hours of support to the startups. And this is something that any of those of you in the room that are running accelerator programs will recognize. We've actually made them practice their pitches again and again and again. So you'll be seeing some of the results of that today. The results, this is one of our engineers. It's one of the things that we find with engineers is that they really do love a problem. And when they find a problem that is particularly difficult, they will just carry on working on that until they find a solution. We've got 13 pilots under negotiation, and this for us is a really, really important metric because it means that there is value in the startups and what they're offering and the corporate opportunities. So some of these are with some of our corporate partners, some of them are with other businesses that we hope to bring in as corporate partners in the future. And the final thing is 9 new alumni added to our network. You'll be hearing from them in the next couple of hours, but please do also stick around for the networking half an hour and just ask them any questions, because they have worked really, really hard to build a valuable business proposition with their companies, and you will be hearing about them a lot more in the months to come. So thank you very much, and I will hand over to Mike again. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Tanya. Right, can I get our first panel up? Bruce Becklov, Chasso, and John. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, let's introduce everybody. We're gonna kind of get through this reasonably quickly, because I think obviously people love also to networking. So this is a very showcasey kind of a day. Let me just kick off now. John Spindler is the CEO of Capital Enterprise on my furthest. He's extremely experienced, and he's the director and co-owner of audio designer and manufacturer Ferguson Hill. I want to hear. What was that? What are you a big audio fan?
I was, but I sold
Use
that,
your mic.
Yeah, so,
Use your microphone.
yes, I was, but I'm no longer an owner. That I sold that actually. So.
Oh, okay. Well, obviously experience in the hardware world. Bruce Becklov to my right, who is you are now where are you now? You Block Ventures. Yeah. Fantastic. And now some highlights from his career so far: working at Texas Instruments, holding strategic marketing group, then investor relations with Arm, created Arm's investment activity, and the list goes on. So we'll hear more from you shortly. And then finally, Ichaso Del Palacio, who is with Microsoft Ventures. She's currently the only Microsoft Ventures partner here at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, in Europe.
In Europe. So the go-to person for Microsoft Ventures. Previously with Lepe Partners, EC1 Capital, and also has an MSc in engineering. So definitely knows what she's talking about. Let's a round of applause for everybody for our panel. Let's now, Bruce, tell us a little bit about Block Ventures and what its investment strategy is in IoT.
Block Ventures is actually an investment company, not a fund. Right. We're trying to implement a truly patient capital model. So we actually raise money just like all the startups in the audience do. We raised a seed fund or a seed round where we went to our friends and family, got them to give us money. We're in the process of raising our Series B. It was formed by myself, who I ran Arm Ventures, and I was at Arm for about 12 years. And a guy named David Leffley, who was head of Vodafone Ventures. Basically, we're trying to implement sort of the best of corporate venturing that we saw, along with what we saw in the best of the venture capital world. But we're investing in things that are a little bit deeper tech, things that you can't fit into a 10-year fund where you have to wrap it up at the end of that time frame. And for us, we don't actually have a model that requires selling any of our companies over time. So we think that's the right model to take out in some of these technologies that take a longer time to gestate. And we'll see if we're right.
I see. John, with Capital Enterprise, what's its activity in IoT at the moment and previously?
We run two funds. We run the London Co-Investment Fund. So that's a £25 million fund. We do seed rounds only, 200 and 250K checks. In that, we've done about 2 or 3 out of our just over 100 deals have been in IoT. And then we have another fund called AI Seed, which does what it says on the tin, kind of invests in early stage AI companies. And I suppose that's where we are probably most interested, is the kind of interaction between basically IoT and machine learning to be able to kind of superpower software to do things it can't do basically normally. So that's our kind of take, and that's where we're particularly interested in, whether it's in robotics, whether it's in basically trying to automate the manufacturing process or optimize it, or whether it's in basically generating kind of cool new things that you can do with hardware that couldn't be done before if it's not intelligent.
And it's also, I mean, Microsoft obviously must have been doing quite a lot of this stuff for some time in the US. Why is it sort of only really getting into it now in Europe?
Well,
Or is that wrong?
yeah, well, I have to say that also in the US, Microsoft Ventures is pretty new. We only started investing 2 years ago. Microsoft used in the past Microsoft Ventures name that you probably know if you've been in the tech space for years in London through the accelerator. They were using the Ventures name, but really putting money into companies only started 2 years ago. And this is kind of Satya, is our CEO, is his baby. He really wants to get into startups and be much closer to startups by investing in companies. So it's fairly new in the US too. In London, I joined 8-9 months ago, and I've been looking at different startups in terms of the investments. We invest in late Series A, B, and C. Investing between 2 and 10 million US dollars. And in terms of IoT, we've been looking at a couple of solutions. We are usually looking at software within IoT. So we want to become the software partner for many of the IoT solutions. So I give you an example. On autonomous vehicles, we are not going to start developing the software, which is something that other companies are doing. Like Google is working on their own autonomous solutions. We are not. We want to work with car manufacturers so we can provide the software and we can augment that through intelligent software solutions. So that's what our investment focus is. We invested, for example, in a drone company, which yes, we do have a hardware element on that, but it has a software SaaS solution on top of it, right? And in terms of Europe, obviously they are looking at me to invest in manufacturing, industry 4.0 solutions, and autonomous with everything that is happening in Germany, in the UK, and there is a lot in France too. Yeah.
Right. What's general question to anybody? I mean, what's this sort of space like in terms of investing in IoT? How is it different to, say, the cloud businesses that people tend to be more familiar with? Anyone? John?
I suppose it depends what we mean, but the biggest difference is if it's hardware dependent, because hardware is a different financial model. It takes a lot more money to kind of scale it. Requires a different type of expertise, and kind of much more difficult, I would say, to kind of raise at least a seed, possibly even a Series A kind of round if it's very hardware dependent. And that's why you'll see a lot of the basically the things that we do invest with are using hardware as a means to acquire data sets, which can then turn into software, which you can then basically work with the bigger manufacturers that have all the manufacturing capacity and the scale and distribution to get those products into market. So that's probably the biggest thing, is the cost of starting and scaling a manufacture. A hardware business is a complete different model to that of a software.
Bruce, what are some of the drawbacks but some of the great opportunities you see in the space?
I think the challenge right now with IoT is it's a bit gimmicky. And there hasn't really been anyone that's kind of found a real economic model that is useful, right? So I've got my Fitbit, I get 10,000 steps, and I go, ooh, that's neat, and then I go on my day. I mean, I'm not doing anything with it. Smart meters. I mean, there's no way I'm going to get my kids to turn off the lights. Yeah, these are the things that right now people are connecting to the internet and giving us great visuals and all that sort of stuff, but it's not yet showing the economic benefits. So I think the opportunity is, I mean, clearly if we can connect these things to the internet, start using them to actually control rather than us trying to decide when to control our lights or me talking my kids into it. I mean, that's when you start to see IoT coming of age. I just haven't seen it as of yet. And I think that's what all the VC community is looking for. That's not to stop trying. I mean, we need to keep going. I don't mind the hardware bit. We've invested in a hardware company already. You know, and there are VCs out there to take those forward. But we need to find that IoT app or something that's actually going to provide an economic benefit rather than just being kind of gimmicky.
One of the problems, obviously, sometimes is, and particularly in this space, is that startups need to be able to interact with very large companies, don't they? So, do you think that that's where outfits like IoT Tribe can come in and do hand holding in that space, or do you? I mean, what's Microsoft's role in that scenario as well?
Yeah, I can respond to that question, but
Yeah.
I want to add to what you said because the examples that you gave are consumer. If we go to B2B, if we go to the industry, to corporate, we can totally see the impact, cutting costs, increasing benefits, optimizing supply chains, using, yes, we use hardware, but we use hardware to gather data that we can definitely aggregate and get benefits. So I would say myself with my Fitbit, I cannot do anything. But if I'm Daimler, the car manufacturer, and I do have sensors in each of the production line steps, then I can do something with that, right? If I'm a Carrefour and I want to optimize the supply chain there. So I definitely see the impact on the B2B space. And you were asking about corporates.
Yeah.
I definitely think corporates can help. Even ourselves, who are a software partner for IoT, we work with hardware partners to be able to commercialize the solutions. And I think in terms of startups, I know it is difficult and it takes a long time, but thinking of both a hardware and a software element gives you, one, the protection and defensibility with the hardware, and two, the sustainable and subscription revenue model through the software, so you can grow over time. So I think that thinking about that and working with the partners who can give you both of them, it is important.
John, have a go at that.
Well, I think she's completely right. I think actually the interesting thing about IoT is that you generate data, and that data should be turned into intelligence. And what you do with that intelligence to disrupt your business models, to enable you to do activities that you couldn't do before, that's where the really interesting thing. I think when IoT started about 5-10 years ago, everyone said, oh, your fridge will be connected and it will be intelligent and it will tell you basically when your fridge going off. And most people said, well, I could just look in the fridge and I'm not that really interested. So actually most of the interest, and I think you'll see the pictures that I've seen, will be industry applications about basically, and not gimmicks. But in London we've had some great successes on things which you probably won't think of mainstream, which are things like toys. You know, whether it's Sam Labs or Technical Savers or Pivo or all of those. I mean, the kind of smart toys, kind of, you know. So it's not necessarily always about kind of B2B, but I think that's where my interest is, and I suspect that's what Tasso's kind of saying as well.
What are the things that we see the big potential in, for instance? I mean, there's a lot of talk about blockchain being able to be monitoring, being a platform to be able to monitor, you know, billions of devices. But there seems that's a very, very sort of early sector of the tech sector, and it's unfortunately full of cryptocurrency crazy people. But the underlying technology is very interesting. We're talking about the opportunity to, you know, monitor billions of things, get lots of data out of it. That's obviously a big issue. But I mean, you know, who's actually doing it?
Well, again, back to the comments I've here. I mean, I think the corporates are starting to sort of try to implement a number of these things. I mean, we've invested in a company called Everything. So yes, I'm an investor in everything. It's a horrible name. But you know, they're
spelled differently. They took out all
they
the
took
consonants.
a few vowels out. But if you're an American, you count Y as a vowel. Yeah,
It's
very
impossible to
difficult.
type when you're a journalist, if I remember.
So and they're trying to take it from, you know, all the way from the consumer products all the way back into supply chain and start managing that whole thing. And I think, there is a lot of opportunity there. And blockchain, let's just call it distributed ledger, whether it's blockchain or not, that is incredibly interesting from a provenance and a trust and being able to really understand how the supply chain is managed, and especially in the gray markets and things like that. That's where we're quite interested in distribute. I mean, just like NDAs. I mean, NDAs are ridiculous these days. You can't trust them. But actually, if you applied a bit of blockchain to that, or let's call it, distributed ledger to that, you could understand if actually the document that you're signing is genuine and is real. So those kinds of things are quite interesting to us. We just haven't seen the wave come through to actually start implementing them in scale.
Yeah, I mean, is there the problems, John, at the hardware layer or the software layer in terms of
I
the opportunity?
I think it's kind of like anything at this wave. I mean, it's a combination of technologies kind of merging together. You talk about blockchain. You're definitely talking about machine learning.
Yeah,
to kind of automate
definitely.
then you're talking about basically the key thing about Internet of Things is ability to capture and structure data at source. And if you can do that, put in a machine learning element of it, and then kind of see what can you take out of the process. There's a great one we're looking at the moment. I suppose I shouldn't say much more because there's investors in the room and they'll beat me to the punch. But they are effectively putting an Internet of Things in with machine learning to go into basically businesses that have a threat of flood. And if you get to a certain level, it will automatically pay out your insurance premium. And it gets rid of the idea of the claim and all of that, and it massively automates that system.
Is that using a smart contract?
Yes, precisely. Again,
right.
So you can see where people are there, and they're thinking, how does that disrupt an industry? Well, how does that basically stop a problem in industry? How do you then build a financial services product on the back of that so you can really capture the full value?
But that would actually require you to be able to monitor. Do you say flood? Sorry. Yeah. So
it's
the water level rising and then something.
What it does, it predicts.
Yeah.
It predicts when it's likely to occur, and basically kind of adjusts your insurance premium, and then pays out if it happens.
That would be Thank you very much, the insurance industry. That would be nice if they did that. I mean.
And don't try and Google it because I'm still trying to invest in it. So.
Well, to be honest, I got asked about this from a company that was doing like your flight is delayed, but then how do they know? Is it because the plane has stopped moving or not? They'd have to monitor that somehow.
I'm sorry to sort of go on about that. That is, insurance might just be the killer app for IoT, because that is where you're starting to see things, again, go back to the Fitbit. Actually, if I got a bit better health insurance, maybe because I am doing my 10,000 steps or whatever, you can see some economic models. I mean, telemetrics in cars and people being able to get better car insurance or pay-as-you-go car insurance because you're actually only paying insurance when you're in your car and driving around at the right speed. Those are quite interesting things that IoT could actually go out and start to make a dent in.
Absolutely. Is that something that you come across as well, Natasha?
Yeah. I mean, I have nothing to add to it.
There's one other thing. We can do some Q&A actually, because we've got some people who are typically investing in this space. So if we have a question, just put up your hand and let's do a little bit of Q&A for 5 minutes. But one last thing I wanted to ask you guys quickly is, interestingly, cyber security is kind of where the internet and hardware and internet IoT also meets, isn't it? And cyber security has to be built into the IoT space as well. And I'm sure you see tons of opportunities.
It's a very interesting thing. I mean, we also run an innovation center on behalf of UCL and Cisco. And Cisco basically select teams to work with Cisco on IoT. And when they select, it's almost always a cybersecurity, because they feel that is the big barrier at the moment for them to be taken kind of seriously across all the things we're thinking about, whether it's autonomous cars, drones, basically automating manufacturing, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, you are quite right. Hacks on basically, with famous hacks on using IoT toys to hack whole systems and break it. You're right, it's a very big area. And a big area for now hackers to basically use.
Sure.
And in fact, I would say on that over 90% of the cybersecurity solutions are on software, but they don't come from the hardware element. And that is basically, there is always a chance to be hacked if that comes from the software. So there are very few companies. There has been very recently, I think last year, a company, Fiberglass, acquired by Cementech in Israel, and that was protecting on the hardware level. But there are very few of them. They paid a lot of money with very little revenues. But on the chip device, it's very important. And going to that, on the IoT, you were asking about the next thing. I definitely think we are not talking about mobile anymore. We are talking about edge computing, and that is where we are looking at devices to be the next generation of the computational space, right? And that is where we come with the cybersecurity too.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Just to comment, the challenge that we've seen in that is everybody cyber this, cyber that, Bayesian this, anomaly detection that. The thing, I mean, if we can find something really different, I mean, cyber is a very, very difficult space, especially investing here in the UK. I mean, we have GCHQ and all those sorts of things. You got the 8200 squad down in Israel, and you got the west coast of the States. I mean, there's a lot of good companies out there, and it's very, very competitive. But finding something that is really different, and again, an economic benefit, cyber is a very, very tough space to invest in, for me, at least.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, but well, there's always going to be hackers out there, and there always needs defenders. Let's have a question. Could you say which company you're with, and then your question? Thanks.
Thank you, the panel, for being here. I'm Zhenya Kazla. I'm from Kazlo Roche Technology Consultancy. And you've been investors. A question popped up to my mind. We're seeing a lot of industries disrupted at the moment. Automotive is been around for 100 years, and yet is not going to be the same in a few more. How do you see investment industry changing? We obviously shifted from businesses working their way through their customers and to venture capital. Now we talk about social impact. What's next?
How do you see what the investment industry?
Investment industry. Yes.
In it changing in what?
What's new? What's going to be?
What's the hot new area?
Future of
well,
investment.
IoT, obviously. I mean, that's why we're here. But I mean, is there any particular aspect in IoT? Do you think, John?
Well, I don't know if obviously like all industries, we won't be disrupted, but obviously we will. Actually, in about a week's time, we're doing a machine learning event where on stage you will be pitching to Alexa, and Alexa will choose from who actually gets investment. Kind of like, so...
Alexa will be just telling you the weather, though.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, kind of like, subject to due diligence, by the way. But yeah, we're going to put in... interestingly, there is a lot of talk about how you can particularly use machine learning or data, etc., to disrupt basically the VC industry or the investment industry. Yeah. It's probably, I suspect, people here are not kind of worried, that their career is going to evaporate overnight. But maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I hope not. I think on a sort of Alexa basis, if you look at a typical fund, there is a general view that you're trying to find the 1 out of 10 that's going to make the fund, and then you're going to, you're going to lose 5, and a few are going to do okay, but that 1 is the one. I think on that distribution model, you could probably use some artificial intelligence, ML, whatever, to go out and say, okay, here's the distribution. I'll put this much across this many, and then you won't need people like me. We don't quite do it that way. We are generally, and this is slightly egotistical, trying not to lose money. And we try to, we're not going to provide the better return. So we're kind of boutique specialists. But I think in the general VC market, if you take that portfolio, it's like quant, right? Quant in the public markets, you don't need humans that much. You need some programmers to make some pretty good algorithms. But doing the buying and selling, that's taken all out of their hands. There's no reason our industry won't go that way.
Any other quick questions? Okay. No, doesn't look like we're okay. Right, great. Well, we're going to move on swiftly now to the first round of pitches. Thank you very much to our panel.
Thank you.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, let's now hear from some startups. We'll allow them to get on now. Tanya, am I running these? Yes. Okay. Let's hear on this. Let's hear first of all from you should know that you're up first. Is Metislab. Metislab, where are you? There you go. Grab a mic. Okay. Here's my recommendation. Stand up here. I think you've got everything. Actually, stand up here. This way. You need a clicker. Right, round of applause, Metislab, everybody. This is about AI for the industrial processes. Let's go.
I'm Alex, co-founder of Metis Labs. So who here has worked in manufacturing? Excellent, good showing. For the rest of you, it's a hidden sector, and it's not often that we get to go into a factory and see what's going on. So I'm going to let you into a secret. The processes at the heart of factories are not as efficient as you might imagine. So failure rates of 10, 15, even 20% are not uncommon, actually. We have a word for this. We call it not right first time. That's when you imagine like you're baking a cake and it doesn't rise. Sometimes you can salvage that product, you can rework it at great expense, and sometimes it's just straight scrap. And this problem is costing the manufacturing sector billions. So I know about this problem. I was a manufacturing engineer. I was responsible for aerospace critical production processes, and I actually made the material that turned into airplane windows. And yes, I faced this problem, and it was my #1 problem. But let's make this real. Why does this actually happen in the first place? Surely factories know how to make their stuff. Imagine you're operating a large brewery, and you're trying to create the perfect pint. It's got to have just the right color, alcohol content, consistency, and taste. It's got to be perfect. Now, in your factory, there are a whole bunch of variables that you can control as the process continues. Temperatures, agitation rates, additions of extra material. And there's also a bunch of variables that you cannot control. So things like the weather, the ambient air, humidity, your raw material. It's actually a natural product after all, so there's going to be a little bit of variation. And when you consider all of these variables and you stack them on a time series, it gets really complicated really quickly. And a small change can actually have a big effect on the integrity of your product. Now, we know that intelligence and experience can help. And that's why we have operators who can adjust parameters inside of a process as it proceeds. And after a few years, 10 years, operators can get pretty good at this. But even then, it's still a dark art. And it's not actually really reliable. And at the end of the day, you can't clone an operator. At Metis Labs, we're solving this problem by putting AI in the hands of every production engineer. So we've developed an AI network that ingests factory process data, like flow rates, temperatures, pressures, control signals, and learns to relate them to critical output variables. So it learns the nuances of any factory. So it can predict upcoming events, cyclic events, like weather, vibration, production cycles. It can learn complex relationships, which is very important, and of course it can adapt over time as well. So let me give you an example. This is some time series factory data, a bunch of variables. To you or I, it's quite confusing. You can see a few patterns. We've taken this type of data, so over 50 variables from a factory, and we've trained our algorithms to relate that to, in this case, the critical output parameter, which is energy demand for this particular process. So the blue line is the actual demand, and the orange is our prediction of it. Now, this is one of the foundational parts of our technology, and what I particularly like about this as a mechanical engineer is that you don't need to tell the system anything about the physical characteristics of the factory process. It learns them empirically. So the traditional approaches to this would be you'd have to model the physics of the factory. How long is the pipe? What is the loss factor? I've done this. It's time-consuming. It's hard. You have to make a lot of simplifications. It's not scalable, and it's not accurate enough. We don't need to do any of that. So, sure, I'm going to tell you all about the tech, but actually, ultimately, what really matters is sales. And it's no secret that the industrial sector is not known for its fast sales cycles. So we're addressing that by building a SaaS product.
You've got 1 minute left.
A SaaS product that's scalable and, and helps us accelerate sales cycles. I'm going to skip through this bit. Competitors. There are loads of them out there, but what I want to be really clear about is we are not doing predictive maintenance, we're not doing business intelligence, and we're not an IoT platform. We're an intelligent process optimization company. I won't tell you about the tech stack in industry. I won't even tell you about who we are. But I'll tell you that we're closing our seed round in the next couple of days, £850,000. And that's going to allow us to secure our first SaaS customers, develop scalable products, and start selling at scale. So we're now hiring. So if you're inspired by the vision and you want to play a big role in making manufacturing more efficient, please come and speak to us afterwards. We're looking for people who are extremely smart, passionate about solving this problem, and overall, are kind human beings. Thank you very much.
Yeah, stay there. Do we have our Q&A? Carry on, let's just stand up there, sir. Yeah. Do you have any questions about Metislab? We could give him another minute to tell us about exactly who they are, for instance. Anyone want to kick off a question? Go. We'll get a microphone to you.
Could you tell us who's a perfect prospective customer for you guys right now?
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking for companies that already have invested in the basic foundations of the IoT tech stack. So that's they have sensors, they have drives, they have an IoT platform that's already pulling the sensor data together. And what that looks like predominantly is process manufacturing companies. So at the moment, we're focused on breweries, we're focused on FMCG, also chemical industry. This will extend to discrete industries, and already companies like Rolls-Royce are getting connected enough that this is starting to make sense in some of their processes. But for us, the early adopters are process industries.
Any other questions or points? The one at the back there.
Ben Reed from Aspmon. Can you share with us your thoughts about how you price a product like this and how you think your customers will make a commercial buying decision around it?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I say, we're focused on selling this product as a SaaS product. So this is the kind of product that an engineer, an operator is going to use every day, every shift to improve the outcome of the processes. So it's they're using it more often than their toothbrush. So SaaS model broadly makes sense. Now, precise pricing, I can't tell you I have all of the answers for that at this point. I think, for us, it's all about benchmarking on the value that we can add. We've tiered our product, so the initial product is as self-service as possible. We want to have an approachable entry-level price. And from there, we can very easily add value. So for example, the companies we're working with already are starting to say, well, how can we automate these actions? And of course, that leads us to higher revenue product. But I think one of the challenges in this area is every factory is different. There are small factories, medium factories, and large factories. So we have a little work to do to really iron out exactly what the uniform pricing will be.
There's another one there.
Hi, Alex. Can you talk a little bit about the size of the UK market for this?
Can I talk to you about the European market?
Okay.
Yeah, fine. So when you look at the European market, we're looking particularly at process manufacturing. There's about 250,000 process manufacturing factories in Europe. You can extrapolate that down to the UK. The industrial automation market, more broadly, is 145 billion globally. So when you consider where we sit within that, that includes robotics, etc. it's clearly a big market, but it's quite difficult to put your finger on exactly how big it is. For us, we're satisfied enough that the numbers are going to make for a good business.
Okay, I'll make this the final question.
Hi, Abraham Joseph, IoT Insights. PTC basically came from process. How do you differentiate from them, and which particular gaps are you feeling that maybe a player like PTC does not fill?
PTC?
Parametric technology, the guys who have the ThingWorks platform.
ThingWorks, yeah. So for me, ThingWorks is an IoT platform. What I didn't talk about here is, for me, these are the foundational infrastructure. So we're looking for companies that have already invested in this type of thing. So they're collecting data, and they're gathering that data together in an IoT platform. What these platforms are not really offering is these detailed, narrow, focused intelligence solutions. So for us, if a company's invested in this, and actually we've already been talking with a number of these companies, they're looking to host themselves as platforms for companies like us. So we see them as potential future sales channels, but at the moment we don't want to be linked or coupled to any of them. We're working independently at this stage.
Okay, great. Thank you for all your questions. Metis Labs, everyone. Okay. Next up, let's have Jim Aguirre from Greeny Wave. Okay, have we got set up? Right. Jump up. Okay, go for it. Greeny Wave, 5 minutes.
Okay. My name is Jimmy Aguirre. I'm from Colombia. I'm here with Jorge, and we are Green Wave. There was a morning I wake up, and when I put my feet in the floor, I see that my home was flooded. And I stand up and look through my balcony, because I was living in a second floor apartment. And I see the water that goes out from my door through the street. This time, I have to spend a lot of money in repairs in my house and also in the house of my neighbor. Green Wave is here to try to realize the people that there is a problem with the water in UK and in Europe. Between the 22% to the 30% of the water in Europe is waste. It's lost between the utility and the people which will be delivered that water. By the 2030, United Nations says in a study that the demand will surpass by the 40%. And also, London is in a list with another 11 cities that in the risk of run out of drinking water. The water damage causes in the United Kingdom that the people pay more in expenses even than the fire accidents. Only in Yorkshire, last year, 5,500 leaks occurs, and this statistics doesn't change yet. It costs daily £19,000 per day for Yorkshire. That's because we don't have accurate measurements in water, and you know that something that cannot be measured cannot be improved and will not work better. The solution is Green Wave. Green Wave is a smart device that will be installed in a side of your currently installed water meter. We don't build meters, we build an add-on for your meter. It takes reading very frequently, and the system is starting to build a user consumption profile that will be very useful, and the people will understand how they're using the water and how to plan it and how to control the consumption. So finally, we will have very valuable data that we don't have now. Also, the system takes care of your water consumption all the time. So if you have any deviation from your usual consumption profile, you will receive an alert in your cell phone. And then you can decide if you cut the main bulb or not. Anyway, it's a good tool to see that there is something wrong in your home. Our product is this. We have here the electricity version because we already have the solution for electricity too that works in the same way. And this is the device for the water. This device works in a mesh network, and every installed device will work as a node in the network, so we will have our self-infrastructure for communications. The signal can jump through any node and goes to the gateway. And also, the network can heal itself, because if any node goes offline, the network will trace another different route. The device also includes cloud services for analysis and queries, and take actions over the systems like cut the water. Here is where the story of the two shoemakers that goes to Africa. And one of they say that the people there, when he said that the people used to walk in barefoot, they say people here doesn't like shoes, so take away. But the other guys say there is a huge market here. We are in the right place. Why? Because in UK, the 60% of the user has no meters. And this not happened in the rest of the globe. As a study by Bluefish says by the next years, 20 billion of pounds will be invested in software and technological resource to improve the conservation of the water in UK. And in Europe, there is 200 millions of meters already installed, which are compatible with Greenway device.
You have a minute left.
This is the market size for United Kingdom and Latin America. As we are from Colombia, we know very well that's market also. Our business model consists in a sell the device and also a subscription that charges a monthly fee by the service provided through the cloud. And this is a very conservative goal, 1% only. And 1% only means that amount of money. This is a comparison chart. This is the features of our products, and that are a list of the smart water meters already installed in the market. So we have a very visible advantage. This is the team. We have more than 10 years of experience, and this is the milestone we reach. The blue points is where we are now, and we already have an investment. We have a knowledge from the Royal Academy of Engineering, because they bring to us from Colombia to here to show our technology. What is the ask? We are looking for a very passionate investor that want to get in this ship and participate in this great business. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Greenway. Any questions? Smart monitoring, water and electricity is obviously a huge space. Any questions from anyone? There are a lot of solutions in the space. Why do you think you've done something different here?
The smart meters installed now is not useful to build a user profile, because they take the readings only once a day, or the most advanced take 2 or 3 times per day. So that kind of information is not useful to build a user profile. And if you don't have the right information, you cannot send notification that there is something wrong. Just you have to wait for days to realize that there is something wrong at home. Also, our device works as a smart hub. Then you can connect any smart device to our node, and you can use our network as a backup for the internet. Then if you have your smart home connected to our water meter or electricity meter, you don't need internet.
So it works without internet?
It can work as a backup for the internet connection.
It's a backup, sorry.
For IoT devices.
Right, okay.
Yeah, you can use to browse on YouTube.
Failure rate. Question.
Hi, I'm Toby Mills from NTP. Just a question around the technology that you're using, particularly the meshing technology. In terms of the installation, is that a self-forming mesh, or does that have to be configured? And then a kind of second part question to that is, how do you secure it?
Well, the device will be installed in a pre-equipped meter. The pre-equipment in the meter is accomplishment with a standard that says that the meter has a magnet in the wheel, in the turbine that reads the water. So what we do with our device is take the readings of the pools and make the necessary mathematical process to know the consumption and flow of the water flow. So the installation will be very easy. You don't have to remove your water meter that you have now. But if you don't have meter at home, you have to install one. About the security, we have 3 levels of security. One is based on hardware by signature. So it makes that any device only respond to its gateway. And the gateway only accept connection from the signed devices that they have in the list. The other security is AES 128 encryption that also adds another layer of software security.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Okay. One more. Okay.
I have a quick questions about your go-to-market strategy. How do you sell your device to the end customers?
What's your go-to-market strategy?
Yeah.
It's always a good one, that one.
Yeah. Last year, in United Kingdom, the regulation changed, and the utilities opened to have retailers in a market model close similar to the electricity that you have here now. And then our main customers is that retailers, because our meter is better than the already existing smart meters. So if any retailer offer our meters, we'll have more customers because people like things to be connected.
So it's a sort of deregulation in the market. It's going to give you a go-to-market strategy, pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Thanks, Greenway. Now let's hear from the Proxy Group in the VR space. After you. This sounds pretty interesting, so let's hear from you. Proxy Group. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Alex, and I'm the co-founder of Proxy Group. And we are the company that creates a bridge of fluid communications between the real world and virtual world in asset management. So what is the problem? 90% of data in IoT never being used, and 60% of that data loses its value milliseconds after obtaining. This is a big problem. The companies have no ability to use information to drive sales and operationals. It's lack of visibility. That's a big pain point in supply chain. That just simply they don't have information in true real time. There is long scanning processes. Right now, worldwide, there is nearly 50% of companies who do not run any type of automated inventory or no inventories at all. And expensive implementation of industrial IoT system for asset management and for RFID. So what we do, this is the magic where it starts. You can actually, our software platform can connect any type of assets, any amount of assets, multiple location, and allow information and data to be stored and shared from anywhere. You can see on this screen how we created an ability to choose the location, an ability to track your assets from across the globe, from any location in true real time. This is very powerful tool to make companies to start making data-driven decision, improve visibility, and increase sales. We take opportunity of new market opportunities in Industry 4.0 to fill the gap in the market to create an ability for companies to lower the cost of supply chain from manufacturing point to the end customer. What we do, how we do it, what's the business model, and what's the benefits. So ProxyTrack, it's a software as a service platform. It's hosted remotely, it's plug and play, and it's easily scalable. We giving a company to in real time the ability to track the movement of each asset from any place in the world. So it's true real time end-to-end visibility in your company. We give the fully automated processes and inventory, ability to store and share data globally, faster return on investment, and what we managed to do as well, we're cutting the cost of deployment for industrial IoT system for asset management by 85%. What's the market? Starting is the supply chain, starting from manufacturing point throughout the logistics, warehousing to the retail. And the data analytics platform represent the fastest growth product market and the compound annual growth rate of 55.4% in 2022. Competitive landscape, where we are and why we are there. There is 46% of the companies worldwide who thinks it's a barrier in deploying industrial IoT for their asset management, and this is a complexity of the actual existing solutions on the market. And 41% of the companies thinks that there is a price issue. Simply, they have a budget and they can't afford to pay for upfront for a system like that. What we're placing ourselves, it is a very scalable system, it's easy to use, and client know what they pay for. So it's pay for use. Client only pay for the data that they're using on monthly basis. So there's no additional payments, it's very safe and secure as well. And that's our strongest asset in the company. Great team of highly qualified professionals and people who have a great advantage on the market to actually do what we are currently doing with this company and going global. And starting from Curtis Scholl, who is the co-founder, and he's backing me up, he's actually up there. And from technical, operational, marketing, data security, and sales.
Okay, do you want to get towards the end now?
And so the project status and what we've done. So in 2017, we actually managed to raise 1.2 million euros, and this is equity free. So we started partnership with Microsoft. The lady who was talking before, we actually managed to get, we negotiating the contract with Microsoft and their client because it's all Microsoft stack system. We managed to finish the proof of concept and commercial pilot for Polish National Post, which was highly published with very good metrics around the world. The partnership with Sescom, Conceptel, research and development laboratory in 2 places in the world. And now we are in the IoT Tribe now, which is actually getting the great results of another pilot and partnership in Asia.
Okay, let's get to some questions now. Do you have 2 slides left? That's it.
Can I just finish that?
Just finish that one then.
So we see that we're seeking 500,000, and the lead investor, we got the money, the 1.1 million euro last month, and we need a help and someone who actually feel the market and know how to help us out to get to the next level.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Proxy Group. Just step forward slightly because you're right around the edge. Thank you. Okay. That would have been a way to end a pitch, wouldn't it?
Very interesting.
Goodbye. Any questions, anyone? Yeah. Who's got some? Yeah.
Ben Reed from Aspon. Just so I understand the product proposition, is it purely a software proposition, or do you have the hardware as well?
We do the whole deployments on the request of our clients, because it's a big demand for software agnostic platform that we choose the best existing hardware. We work with the hardware distributions as well as the distribution channels. So if most of the companies in the world, the integrators do not do their own hardware or their own software, and this is a problem. That's why they want to work with us to get. So that's the business model.
So the limitation in terms of the quality of data analytics that comes out of the software, it will be limited by the data that the hardware collects. Is that right?
I will actually ask Curtis. He's just sitting up there to answer those questions.
Hi, it's Curtis, Proxy Tree. What's your question again?
The question was clearly the value of the software is the analysis of the data that comes out of it. If you're not controlling the hardware, is it limited by the quality of the data the hardware is collecting?
It's not really limited. The quality of the data is not limited itself. Now, the frequency of the data, there might be some constraints about that, but the quality of the data is pretty much proven in the industry for RFID.
Okay. Final questions, anyone? Okay, great. Thank you very much, Proxy Group.
Thank you.
Right, next up, the final pitch in this section is a company called Tended. Leo Scott Smith to present, wherever you are, Tended. This is going to be interesting. This is in the wearable space, but around safety. So over to you. Okay, 5 minutes, go ahead.
Good morning. My name's Leo, and I'm the CEO of Tended. In the UK, it's estimated there are 28 million people who regularly take part in activities where they could be at risk of accident or emergency. This includes sports people, lone workers, dependent seniors, and vulnerable individuals. I myself was one of these 28 million. 3 years ago, I was involved in the management of a charity based in Nepal. We were providing essential life-saving support to those who needed it the most. During my time in this position, it was the time of the Nepal earthquakes, so I was on the ground for 6 months. During this time, we were constantly facing battles and death in the face, with aftershocks, landslides, and even ambushes. At the same time, my mother, who lives alone, was renovating her house. At the time, she fell off her ladder. Luckily, she wasn't really injured, but it could have been so much worse. And this got me thinking, what would happen in the event of an emergency when nobody was there to call for help? This isn't limited to just a few. In the UK alone, the most common cause of death for 5 to 34-year-olds is accidents. There are 6,000 home-related deaths every year and 12,000 deaths as a result of a fall. This is why I created Tended, a personal safety technology company suitable for every different demographic. Our first product, the Tended Protect, combines machine learning, wearable technology, and haptic feedback. And through this, we can monitor a number of different variables, which means that almost immediately we can work out if somebody has been involved in an accident or an emergency. In the event of an emergency, we can send out potentially crucial life-saving data, which includes live GPS location, activity information, health information, and live audio. This will go out to the user's emergency contacts, an emergency call center, and even the emergency services. To date, we've created an MVP, we have a patent pending on our hardware, and we also have a trademark and an established supply chain in China. Our team is made up of 10 people, from hardware, software, firmware engineers, as well as business development, marketing, and UI, UX design and product designers. So our route to market, we started off with a consumer product and the gap in the market that needed to be filled. So this is how we start. We start with our crowdfunding campaign, which is going to go live in May, and we're working with some of the biggest players in the market, including Rain Factory, whose average campaign generates $1.4 million. We're working with an award-winning London-based PR company, as well as a top San Francisco video production agency. Following this, we're looking to raise around £600,000 on that crowdfunding campaign, and that'll equate to 10,000 unit sales. Following that, we're going to move over to online sales, which will be through Amazon Launchpad and Indiegogo In Demand. Once we've created enough traction, we're going to move over to retailer and distributor agreements. We've already had discussions with the likes of John Lewis, Vodafone, and Buildbase, which have been quite positive. During our time at IoT Tribe, we've seen a real desire for an enterprise-level solution. And looking at the statistics, you can see why. There are 8 million lone workers in the UK, with 250,000 workplace accidents every year, 150 lone worker assaults each day, and couple this with the employer's duty of care which has been put in place for lone workers, you can see just why employers are so concerned about monitoring the safety of their workforce. This has been backed up through our recent confirmed pilots with Rolls-Royce, Peterson Group, and LGG Construction. We're also having early stage discussions with Bristol City Council, Sheffield City Council, and Singapore, who've all showed a real interest. So in August, we're going to start developing our enterprise level solutions to meet this demand. These will include employee location services, an AI supported safety monitoring service, Attended, and our employer dashboards. Through combining this, we can create an all-round personal safety solution for monitoring the safety of lone workforces. Our business route to market begins with business pilots. And once we've got these confirmed, we're going to look at creating company contracts with companies from anywhere to 3 to 30,000 employees. Following this, we're looking to start with insurance provider agreements. We've already had small discussions with AXA Insurance, who have expressed an interest in providing devices like ours to their policyholders in a very similar scheme like the black boxes which car insurance providers provide to their policyholders to lower their insurance premiums. So what are the existing solutions on the market? In the consumer market, you've got panic buttons. They're very simple. You press a button and it sends out an alert, but they're not practical and they're not automatic. Lone worker alarms, they're slightly more advanced and they include basic movement detection, but they often send off false positives. And mobile apps, although much cheaper, they're generally much trickier to use and they're not a good fit for the solution. So how do we differ? We're low cost. We offer a subscription-free model as well as affordable devices and a simple pricing structure. We combine this with machine learning and our wearable devices. This means that we can minimize the chance of false positives to almost none, which is a big issue on the current solutions because they're constantly sending out false alarms, which is a waste of time and money for companies. Combine this with our user-friendly devices, which take only 2 minutes to set up. It means that we have an all-round, much better personal safety solution. So what does our timeline look like? So far, we've only had £20,000 worth of private investing. The rest of the money has come from myself. At the moment, we're in the process of closing our pre-seed SEIS round, which we're closing in 2 to 3 weeks. Then in August 18, we're looking at raising a seed round, which is still SEIS and EIS, and that will be to fund the development of our enterprise-grade solutions. And then following that, we're going to look at a Series A in the sort of last quarter of 2019. So what are we looking for today? So we've still got a little bit of space left on our pre-seed round, so we've got £25,000. So if anybody's interested, we've got 2 or 3 weeks. We're also looking for VCs or angels that are interested in beginning discussions for our SEIS, EIS round of around £400,000 in August. And we're also looking for retailers, partners, or clients that might have an interest in our technology. So if you fit any of these bills or you just want to find out more about Tended, I welcome any questions. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Any questions for Tended? I've got 1, 2 up here. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Damien, the founder of Standard Access. Leo, can you tell me a bit more about the false positive, how you deal with that?
Yeah.
And if you're out of coverage from a telephone network, will it still work?
Okay, so first on the false positive. So we have a system built in place so that when a device detects what it would indicate as a fall or non-movement, we have a very simple system so the device vibrates on the user's wrist. And this will be for a set period of time, which is set in the mobile app. And from that, they then get a response time. And if they don't respond, then it will send out an alert. So we're the only personal safety device that builds in this false positive defense mechanism. And then on the mobile app front, in terms of the user signal, because we are a Bluetooth connected device, and that could be an issue if you were working off a standard network, but our systems are designed in such a way that we send out such a small amount of data in the event of an emergency that we could send out an alert even in the situation where you might not have enough signal to make a phone call.
Another question there.
Hi, I'm Elliot. I'm with Passion Capital. I was wondering what prevents any Fitbit slash wearable provider of just adding this monitoring or accident detection to their already existing device?
So our hardware includes additional sensors and also additional bits of hardware, which make our devices much more suitable for the application. And this means that it's much less likely for false positives to be sent off. We also have a patent pending on the particular element of our device which which uses the haptic feedback. So that should minimise the chance of them taking over us in that market. But I would also say that the likes of Fitbit and Apple, they have a different perspective. Fitbit are fitness, and I don't think that they'll ever divulge from that. But to combat the market with something like Apple Watches, because people could try and bring out a similar app for the Apple Watches, we're going to be developing an app which can simply be installed and effectively turn an Apple Watch device into a tended device. However, on the front of that, we do recommend that it shouldn't be used. It can't be used as much of a cover method as one of our devices, because our devices and the technology that we have will be much more effective than the technology in an Apple Watch.
Good answer, I think. Anyone else? Okay, looks like go on. Sucker for punishment here.
Great answer, but I'd like to clarify, because I can see the real need for the healthcare market with our population
so your question is
quickly, and there are already a number of solutions that do sort of that source alarm in the healthcare.
Yeah.
So where is your differentiator? What is that you're developing that?
So what's our differentiating factor between like the lone worker alarms that exist currently?
Yes.
Right, okay, yeah. So the lone worker alarms that exist currently, they're not intelligent. They will send off false positive 2 or 3 times every day. So I've got a friend that works on a solar farm, and he gets a call 2-3 times a day saying, "Are you okay?" And he's just sat down and he's not actually done anything. And that's because they're not intelligent. So our systems have an intelligent method built into them, and we have a false alarm prevention, which means that we prevent these false alarms being sent off. Our devices are also much more affordable. And they're much simpler to use. So on top of that, we also track fitness, which is an added benefit, and we have a back-end system so the employers can see everything that's going on. So all round, we're a better, more affordable, and more intelligent solution than what's on the market currently.
Great. Thank you very much. Right, we're now going to have switch gears to a second panel of the morning. Could I have Caroline, Christian, Stephen, and Tanya up on stage, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lovely. Any particular whatever?
Yeah, that'll work. Right, let me introduce everybody.
Do we need to shift along a bit? Yes, we do.
Yes.
Just don't fall off the back of the stage.
No,
I've made that mistake in the past. It's very embarrassing.
I'm at the limit, so
I fell off the back
don't
of the
ask me
stage
to go
once.
any further, please.
There's loads more room, actually.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me just introduce everybody quickly. Excuse me, just get my notes together here. So, Caroline Gorski.
Hello.
Hello. So, you're currently Director of Global Ecosystem and Partnerships at R2 Data Lab with Rolls-Royce. You're a data innovation catalyst. R2 Data Labs is the data innovation catalyst inside Rolls-Royce. Previously, you were head of IoT and manufacturing at Digital Catapult. Yes, fantastic. Next, Stephen Patterson. Stephen. No, we're just doing it in the order I've got it in on words. You are VP of Public Affairs at ARM, which everyone has heard. If you haven't heard of ARM and you're at this event, you're probably in the wrong place. And so you're responsible for ARM's involvement with and contribution to policy and government. And for everyone who might be interested, he's ex-Dyson and an ex-British diplomat. Well, I'm sure there's lots of other questions we'd like to ask you as well along these lines right now. But meanwhile, Christian, Mastro Donato, how's
Perfect
that?
pronunciation.
And you're currently chief technologist at where are you, chief?
Konica Minolta.
Minolta. And you're also responsible for technology strategy and selection for R&D in Europe. And I think we know Tanya from IoT Tribe. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this round of applause for our panel. Now, what we want to cover off here is much more along the lines of the corporate relationships between startups in this space and how we all get along with each other as one big happy family. We've obviously heard from Tanya, who's hugely experienced in this space, and IoT Tribe, which is very much, totally sort of really tailor-made to try and address this problem. But let's hear from, for instance, from Konica, for instance, Christian. How do you integrate with startups in the IoT space?
Well, it's not difficult to find them in the sense that at this moment there are many and many.
But once you've met them, then how does it go from there?
There are several phases, and as you kind of point out in the, let's say also in this panel main point. So of course, the easy bit somehow is really trying to assess the value with a small pilot project. And that's usually the easy bit in the sense that, well, if you know your stuff and you really understand your field, you can generate value, let's say, relatively easily. But let's say that's just the first bit, let's say, is the easy bit for the company, somehow for the large company. But then when most of the problems comes up when you want to scale up. And there are usually two problems related to the scaling up. One is that, of course, it really matters the part of the company you're talking to, because, everybody knows about big companies, even if they say or they don't say. There is a lot of company politics going on. So you really need to find the right department and find kind of the right consensus around the specific, let's say, the specific startup, and how that startup can grow up and the investment can grow up. So that's one specific bit that is very important really to identify. It happened to me a lot of times to meet startups saying, I'm working with Konica for 3 years about something, but we're not really scaling up. So, well, because you're talking to the smallest department in some remote country, and nobody's caring about what you're doing. It's just kind of normal. So that's one of the key areas. Yeah. And then the final step is really around scaling up with the market. For example, in case of Konica, we are very strong in the SMB market. So we usually look for IoT solution that can really scale up for our customers more than that. And that's very difficult because most of the IoT solution, industrial IoT solution, are mainly designed for large customer. We do basically one single project very large. From our perspective, we have to be able to have very, very replicable projects that we can, let's say, deploy for 1,000 of our customers, for example. That's not very easy in this moment in the IoT market. That, I would say, sums up, at least for us, the situation.
Caroline, what's your view on this subject?
So I'm going to put my cards on the table and admit I am completely poacher turned gatekeeper in this regard, right? So I've spent the last 3 years prior to this role working with the Digital Catapult, furiously throwing brickbats at large corporates who couldn't find ways of engaging with the startup community. And now I'm sitting on the other side of the fence. And I think fundamentally, there are a number of specific challenges, many of which we're actually actively trying to address within Rolls-Royce at the moment with the team that I'm leading. And I would completely endorse exactly what Christian's been saying, but there's some real challenges with answering the question, where are you playing in corporate's business model, right? So if you're touching something that is core product, which many IoT solutions are, you have all manner of additional challenges associated with being able to demonstrate the veracity, the reliability, the security, and the trustworthiness of the solution that you're offering. So as soon as you start to think about Rolls-Royce's product domains, you think about the engines that we make and what they do, the fact that they're the things that keep airplanes in the sky, the fact that they're the things that allow for power stations to be generating power, you can see we become very, very nervous and very challenged at the notion of kind of intervening into that product domain space with something alien that we haven't built ourselves and we don't understand if we can trust. So pick where you engage with your corporates really carefully. Think about the places that you can add that value, you can demonstrate your capability, some of your, excuse me, some of your core capability without necessarily stepping immediately into their kind of most tightly protected domain. And you'll see that's not only true for engineering corporates. If you think about customer-facing corporates, I had a really interesting conversation with the head of innovation at the Clydesdale and Yorkshire Bank the other day. And his point was he really struggles to get startups into his organization at the point at which the relationship with the end customer is the thing that's on the table. Because that end customer relationship for a bank, that's their gold and silver and crown jewels, right? That's the place where they make every single point of their margin in managing that relationship with their end customers. They're really nervous about giving that up to unproven organizations who they're not sure if they can trust. So for me, yes, find the right places to do piloting. Don't get trapped in that really unpleasant, continuous, free of charge pilot cycle, right? If corporates value what you have, they should be paying for what you have. Don't let them get away with telling you that it's a free of charge pilot. You've got to run it for 6 months and bear all of the operating your costs yourselves. It's, frankly, you know, they haven't appreciated what value can give if they're not prepared to put forward enough money to help you to work with them to release that value into their organization.
We'll certainly be looking for where to send the bill to Rolls-Royce then. That'll be a super opportunity. Stephen R. must have tons of experience in dealing with startups. How did you fix it if there's a problem?
We've got tons of experience of startups coming to us and asking for help. I don't know about fixing them. I mean, we're in a slightly different position, right? Because we're a B2B company. We're a long way down the food chain, if you like. So we're slightly conflicted. Yes, we really want to see IoT take off. So it's great to see companies exploring essentially new IoT services in the consumer space and so on. And we've got ideas about why IoT has been a bit slower than we always thought, and so on and so forth. And we do a bit of, through investment funds, investing in those kinds of companies. But if you're looking for a direct relationship with us, we would be much more interested in companies, if you like, that had rather niche technologies that complement our own, or at least, you know, go in the direction we're trying to go. And if you got that, then we are quite interested in you. And we look at a number of ways of investing. I mean, typically, if it's a company that's got a technology that complements our own, you know, we'd expect it to be revenue generating, but not necessarily making a profit. If it's a company that's got a really good blue skies idea that might take us in a slightly different direction, we may be interested in it even if it's not revenue generating, if we thought it had a really good team and a really good idea. So there are ways in which we get interested in some of these young companies, but typically they're companies that are working, as it were, in an area adjacent to our own. That doesn't mean we're not interested in a whole range of others, as I say. I mean, you know, we want to see the IoT take off and want to try to find ways to help the startup community drive it.
Thank you, Tanya. You've obviously had a very good crack at this problem. I mean, what do you see the pitfalls, and also how do you see it being fixed easily or more easily?
Well, there's definitely a mismatch between timescales. So the time and the resources that startups have to pursue the relationships with corporates versus the internal processes that corporates have to go through necessarily to get something improved and embedded in their day-to-day business. There's definitely a mismatch there. I would say that one of the key things that we found is identifying the right person within the company that the startups should engage with. It's somebody that normally has to then go internally and open doors, circumvent certain things that are done normally. So they have to understand the rules of the game, and they have to speak the language of business, but they also have in their backpack all the tools to make things happen much more quickly and much more directly than otherwise. So that's one of the critical things.
If you're a startup, is it a good idea to find the kind of maverick inside the company who's going to kind of break down a few doors for you or something?
Absolutely, and I have to say that the first thing is you have to have your value proposition absolutely clear to the corporate. We've seen a lot of startups generally that might have really good products, but they are unable to articulate the value of that to the company. And that has to be very specific to the sector, to the department even that you're working with or trying to sell into. So generic value propositions don't really work for that. They have to, and that requires actually having a lot of conversations. It's not just enough to go and look at Rolls-Royce's website, because you wouldn't really know where you can add value to Rolls-Royce if you did that, or Konica Minolta, or Arm, in fact. So there's a lot of going to events, speaking to people, coming out of your comfort zone, you know, putting your game face on. You know, we all have to do that, even, you know, regardless of the side of the fence you're on.
Yeah.
And that's really important.
Stephen?
I'm not sure it's about whether you need a maverick who's going to break down doors. I think it's more about trying to build a link with those bits of the company you're interested in, who are interested in the area you're working in. So if you take Arm, for example, if you had let's say, a cybersecurity idea, we have a very strong interest in cybersecurity, and the way to get our interest would be for you to have a dialogue with the cybersecurity people. If you're interested in wider IoT stuff, then I think it helps hugely if you're operating in an area where we think there's real scope for driving it. So health is one, and we've heard some health ideas. Manufacturing is another. I mean, we think these big areas where IoT is probably going to take off. Transport may be one. So, if your idea is in those areas, then my suggestion is find your way to the person in a particular company who's working on those areas and talk through some of the broad issues before you go in and say, are you a soft touch for a new round of funding?
What about the issues around scaling the engagement? So you've got your foot in the door, you've got the contacts, you've met the right people inside the corporate, for instance. You've also got investors breathing down your neck. How do you go from doing maybe a little pilot or a project with the company to really scaling it up? And where have you seen those, Caroline? Where have you seen those work or not work?
Yeah. So some of that serendipitousness, is that a word? Whatever that word is, serendipity. So sometimes it's just about landing in a spot where your value proposition is clear, and someone with a real passion for driving that forward inside their organization who has the right level of buy-in or can achieve that level of buy-in is able to champion that on your behalf. But that's not really very scalable, because you can't just assume you're going to serendipitously come across all of those people every time you drop into the next corporate that you want to work with. So one of the other things I would be suggesting, and it's something that Rolls-Royce are taking quite seriously now and putting into place inside our organization, is look for corporates who actually understand the challenge to themselves of shepherding startups into their organization. So we are developing inside our own corporation the ability to have startup mentors, to have individuals who are well connected inside our company who join a mentoring program for themselves to be able to engage with the innovation community, and actually that has a positive developmental and professional impact for them, but also because of their interconnectedness in our organization and their ability to break down some of those boundaries. And so creating that Sherpa role is, I think, it's part of what you should look for when you're trying to find a corporate that has a matured approach to open innovation, because it's relatively easy as a corporate to go, I'm going to bolt on some open innovation around the edge, and we're going to do some funky things and get some PR out of it. It's really very hard for a corporate to put in place the internal structures to actually seriously drag that innovation into their own operation.
How does Konica do it? How does Konica scale it up?
I was actually wanted to follow up what Karin was saying anyway, because let's say I think there is another aspect that you have to understand. Let's say at least, and I say that with the hat of working, let's say, in a corporate or for a Japanese company, okay, which is the cultural aspect of the company you're engaging into. So, for example, talking about a Japanese company, they tend to be very risk averse, especially at the beginning. So they want to taste the water, they want to understand what you're doing, they want to understand very, very well whatever your company is doing. So even if, let's say, in Europe, in US, we have this kind of structure where we can help startups, and we can have this sort of mentoring and let's say accompanying them inside the company itself, it is still the mentality is, well, we have to be really, really sure. And that's of course, when on the other end, the typical startup engagement is, well, I mean, you are in a hurry, you want to rush, you want to do a lot of things in a short time, which makes sense from the perspective. I would do the same. But I think it's really important to create this sort of cultural connection and understand that you have to prove yourself again and again and again. And usually the kind of patterns is sort of exponential, okay? So when it looks is very, very, very slow and you always feel it's not really moving, but when it takes off, it can scale up globally because you are possibly, in the case of Konica, for example, they're talking of a global organization. When it takes off, well, we can start selling that piece of business, let's say that piece of technology, well, in 100 different countries at the same time, then you actually see the revenues coming back. But it might take more than a year. So it needs patience and it needs, let's say, understanding of the culture and really trying to connect with the culture of the company. That's very important. It's beyond even the specific department itself.
Stephen, you must have seen some successes.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the answers to this is, if you're thinking about pitching to a big company like Arm, try to think of how you can take that company on a journey that's of interest to them as well as you. I mean, I see loads of people, they come to us and they've got a great idea, and their main aim in life is to make it a success as fast as possible. I'm thinking, you know, what's Arm's interested in this? But if you can take the target company on a journey that's of interest to them, and you can sort of at Arm, because we do produce, as I'm sure people here know, we produce quite a lot of tools for developers, embed software. So, you know, I can imagine a situation where a startup comes to us, says, look, got this thing, we've been working on the embed development software, we've got some, let's say you've got some issues with it, or we've got some ideas about where you can take it, or we've got some applications for it. That's the kind of thing that begins to take us on a journey that's of interest to you and is of advantage to you because we're helping you grow your business.
Oh, right, let's move to questions, if anybody. We've got a blooming experienced team up here. I'm sure there's some startups in the audience who would like to ask a question. There we go.
So you guys are all working for pretty large global companies. And as a startup, I think one of the challenges is to find the right level of company to start with. And sometimes the large companies actually can be almost too big to start with. But something I've experienced is that sometimes a large company can have a smaller test bed that you guys use. Like this factory is the one that we're doing first. Have you got any piece of advice how to accelerate our journey to find those test beds that you guys might know about but are not visible to the outside world?
That's a good question, and I'm not sure I can answer it generically. I'm like, my answer would be relevant for Rolls-Royce, but I'm not sure it would necessarily be relevant for all engineering organizations or manufacturing organizations. Generally speaking, inside large footprint engineering companies, manufacturing companies, there will be someone or a group of individuals who are responsible for the future state of that organization. So they will have the transition between strategic direction and implementation will be on their remit. And that will often include things like model operating processes and model factories and test beds and kind of research environments, applied research environments rather than purely academic research environments. And that might be the director of R&D, or it might be the director of technology, or it might be the director of engineering. It kind of depends on the firm, right? But there will be someone whose team who has a function that is about transitioning the future state to an applied state. And I guess it's a case of finding, if you can, either that individual or a route to access that individual.
Anyone else?
I want to say, Carolyn, isn't this something your former employer, the Digital Catapult, ought to be doing? Isn't that what they do?
In terms of maintaining that list of all of those demonstrators. So yeah, they do that along with the High Value Manufacturing Catapult for the demonstrators that are collaboratively funded between the public sector and the industrial sector. But what they don't necessarily have visibility of, except in their own client base, is the private individual demonstrator capabilities that I think you were referring to. So I think there's two layers there. There's the sort of openly accessible ones, and yes, absolutely jump in and engage with the catapults as much as possible to access those. But if you're speaking about the kind of closed environment demonstration facilities, you'll have to go into the corporates to find those, I think.
So, Mike, can I just come back to something, because you were asking the corporates how they deal with going from pilot to integrating into the wider business. I think there's also something there that the startups need to do. So if they have hardware, for example, they need to make sure that their bill of materials is appropriate for scaling up in terms of volume, and the price point is right for reaching those much larger markets. And for any startup, regardless of whether it's more data or software or a hardware startup, they need to have documentation. So for any corporate to take a relationship to that contractual level, they're going to have all the reassurances that what's being offered is solid, not just in terms of value proposition, but also the way, so all the documentation is there and it can be scaled through that so that it's a very reliable proposition.
If I can, let's say, close on that, but also answering to his question. In that sense, it needs also some flexibility around the business model itself, okay? So it happens to me sometimes, some startups that comes and say, okay, this is our business model, full stop. That might work in consumer, but for an enterprise, well, you have to be adaptable to our way of doing business. Otherwise, we just can't work together, even if the technology is perfect. If it doesn't fit in our business model, or yeah, it just doesn't work. We cannot sell it. But answer to your question, well, it comes back to what Caroline said. I think it's sort of, well, it should be one of my different, let's say, tasks. But you have to find the right person internally who can actually, whose job is going around and trying to identify the internal pilots. Because it's a job by itself, let's say. It takes time in a global company to find the ones who are willing. It took me, when I started in Konica Minolta, I started to actually have the decent targets internally after 18 months at least. So you have to find that expertise inside the company. And usually those kind of innovation accelerator are the right place, at least to find the people who spend some time doing that kind of thing.
Any other questions? No, right.
Hi, good morning, Ralph. Started Bootcamp IoT, so you know me already. We always hear about the success, and we always hear about the way we integrate relatively right with startup companies. But I'm very keen on hearing some failures as well. So, can you guys share with us some of those that you've encountered? And don't tell me you have any, because I wouldn't trust you. Any of those, not entirely success, of ways or things that the audience, in particular the startup, can learn from, things they shouldn't do really, but just things they should do.
Well, I can start. I think I touched already a few of them, so I can start from them. Definitely, they can sum up. I have in mind a lot of companies who engage with the wrong part of our company. And then, yeah, I found out after years and say, okay, guys, it was great too, and I found out your technology very interesting. And they come back to me and say, well, but you already spent a lot of time with Konica, and we didn't get anywhere. We're not really keen to work with you. And say, yeah, but yeah, you engaged with a completely wrong part of the company. So of course it didn't work. And that's one aspect. And the other aspect is, again, somewhat a lot of inflexibility around the business model sometimes. And yeah, you have to understand for a global company, that's a big deal, even if the technology is perfect. So there were a lot of failures where in the moment of scaling up, well, not a lot, but a significant number, I have in mind at least, well, the ballpark could be 20%, that, yeah, they didn't want to adapt to the, let's say, the business model when it was really the point to, let's say, scale up. And then, yeah, it's a deal breaker. But in the end, most of the startups, yeah, let's say, well, the reality is they have to prove the value with the right KPI. And so most of the failures around IoT or especially IoT or data science, artificial intelligence is really trying to provide really the statistical proof that your system works. Of course, as you mentioned, find the right pilot makes sense, but in general, in a lot of cases, it just doesn't work.
Who else has some failure stories?
So I've been at this gig for a little while, and I will do this, no names, no pactoral. But I've worked with a number of innovation functions inside a number of large corporates and also on the other side. One of the biggest and most frustrating periods of my life was working with a really super accelerator that was a corporate accelerator. I headed up the enterprise sales team for retail and leisure clients in a big telco. And so I was looking to that innovation base to find me funky new things you could do with experiential retail. You know, how could you use screens on your mobile phone and automatic footprint tracking and, you know, data about who was in your shop to magically present someone with an offer that was specifically targeted to them so that I could take that out to my client base and they could go, oh, you're so marvelous, Caroline, we'll buy this and everything else you've got to sell. And because, you know, fundamentally as the head of sales for that function, that was my job. And the challenge I faced wasn't with the technology or with the enthusiasm or with the application or with the value assessment of that startup. It was the internal cost of getting their product on our billing platform, right? Which is a number with 5 digits after it. No, 6 digits after it. And that just blew everything out of the water, right? Because as soon as you say, well, I've got this great proposition, we think over some period of time it might make this, but it's going to cost us £500,000 to stick it on the billing platform. So the thing's already in the hole by that much before it's even got out of the traps. And so that's a really, really big challenge. And for me, that's about corporates not really understanding the dynamics of how to integrate small businesses into their organization. I think there are another category really quickly of failures that from the corporate perspective would be viewed as failures, but I'm not sure they're viewed as failures from the startup perspective, because actually what they are pivots. So they are chances for that startup to apply its assumptions about its business model to a corporate space and then learn that they got it wrong and do it differently.
Let's final thoughts from the panel on this subject.
So some of the things that we found with some of our startups are data silos within companies. So again, that's not a failure from the side of the startups, but corporates thinking, oh yeah, no, we can definitely integrate that. And then actually when it comes to actually deploying the solution, there are internal things that nobody has the job title or the incentive to fix. And therefore, what could have been something that would add value and be really interesting kind of just gets companies and data tags and et cetera, and timeline. Yeah,
Stephen.
absolutely.
I'd say one quick thing on this, and it's about the startups I've seen who come to us. I mean, the biggest failure is the failure to think about marketing. My view is that everybody in a company ought to be a marketer, and I see a lot of companies that got what looks like a great idea, but they kind of give the impression, look, aren't we clever, we can do this, someone must want it. And actually, you should start from the other end. You know, who wants this? How am I going to reach them? What's the marketing strategy? And then maybe I can design something.
Very good, wise words. We don't want to end on failure, by the way, but this is all useful feedback for the startups and everyone in the room. So please thank our panel and everybody. Right, we have the last pitches of the day. So we'll just make sure that nobody falls off. Let's hear first of all from Gothenburg. Gothenburg?
Yes.
Gothenburg, sorry.
You can do it.
Gothenburg,
You can do it.
which, if you haven't guessed that, I'm sure all of you realize that ahead of me, this is to do with gnomes. No, I'm joking. You will find out pretty soon. So let's hear from
Thank you.
Gothenburg. Thank you. Big round of applause, everybody.
Thanks.
Okay.
Just a heads up for everyone who's watching via live stream, there are a couple of slides that have or contain information that we can't share publicly. So the live stream or the camera will move out of the window and we will not literally say what is on the slide, but you can see and read it, and I'm sure we can figure a way around it.
This is great, isn't it?
Already all excited.
Everything's full of spies today, and, you know, it's just such an exciting time to live in.
All tactics.
Just put I think we should put a sort of censored over the camera. Okay, go for it.
Okay, so here, this is Andre, I'm Sabrina, and we are the co-founders of Gartenswerk. We are on the mission to enable anyone to grow their own fresh food effortlessly on the push of the button out of the comfort of their home. Did you know that the 3 main reasons why people don't grow their own food are lack of space, lack of time, and lack of knowledge? Yet, a lot of people love to eat fresh food from home, but felt terribly to even just keep their basil plants alive. And here we are to take those hurdles away. With Gartenswerk, a fully automated and beautifully designed personal indoor garden with which you can grow small fruit, vegetables, and herbs anytime, anywhere from your home. Gartenzwerg doesn't just look really good, he's also pretty smart. He comes with all sorts of sensors that measure light intensity, water level, temperature, humidity, and it communicates with you over an app to let you know exactly what to do. So you receive notifications like, hey, I'm thirsty, give me some water, or hey, I'm grown up now, it's cropping time. In addition, you can read tutorials and you can share your growing experience with the community. In the near future, we also want to integrate Gartenzwerg as part of the smart home ecosystem, using voice assistants such as Alexa. So Gartenzwerg looks good, is pretty smart, and he comes with a lot of benefits. Pretty good package. To name a few, Gartenzwerg allows you to grow food all year round. And it grows food up to 3 times faster and saves up to 90% of water in comparison to soil-based production. Here you also have an overview of the foods you can grow with Gartenzwerg. So, how do you get a Gartenzwerg in your home and how do we make money? We offer a combination of products and services. At the beginning, you can purchase a Gartenzwerg for your home, either as a one-off payment or you opt in for our subscription, which runs on £15 per month for a minimum of 1 year, and you get the garden, free supplies, and special offers. And we also want to partner with schools, cafeterias, and schools to bring Gartenzwerg to your day-to-day life and to give you access to fresh food. With all those gardens in place, we are able to collect a lot of data, which then can translate into services. We can sell the data. We can implement our peer-to-peer sharing economy where urban farmers can sell and trade their food and share it with people in the city. And third-party companies can advertise their products through our platform. So in terms of opportunity, the personal garden industry is a fairly new market, so there are no official numbers yet. To get a steer, we took the 8.5% of Brits who love to eat organic and ethical food, and the 66% of people who don't grow their own food of the reasons that I mentioned earlier. That leaves us with a market size of 3.6 million people. Multiplied with our estimated customer lifetime value of £288, that leaves us with a market opportunity of £1 billion in the UK. And how do we reach those people? Well, we did speak to a lot of them, and we figured out that our target groups are very active online and offline. This is why for marketing channels, we focus on paid and owned social media, on email marketing, influencer marketing, as well as PR and pop-up events and events. And for sales, we plan to launch Gartenzwerg by the end of this year, but just yesterday we launched our pre-orders in our website. So if you want to secure your own Gartenzwerg, you can do that with a £50 deposit, little sales pitch. And at the end of April, we're also launching our Indiegogo campaign. In terms of traction, we have spent very little on marketing, and we have over 1,000 followers and subscribers on our platform with people who are eager to have a Gartenzwerg. We have closed our seed round with over 250 investors who are also our ambassadors, and 30 of them are our beta testers now. And as you can see in Singapore, we are in negotiations with a potential collaboration that could have a huge impact on our business. Don't take just our word for it. We speak a lot with our ambassadors and beta testers, and people say what we already felt from the beginning as well. They hate that they have to throw away food. They love to eat fresh but can't keep their plants alive, and they see the need to disrupt our food, how we produce food at the moment, and we can start that with a personal garden.
Hi. Wait, there's more. So, well, as Sabrina mentioned, the personal indoor garden industry is a pretty untapped market. They're not big players yet, but there are a few startups trying to unlock this market. As you can see here, the main reason why we believe they're not successful yet in scaling their businesses is because they focus primarily on the technology and they don't offer a good value for money. At Gartenzwerg, we're not only bringing cutting-edge technology to people's homes, but also beautifully designed products with an engaging user experience at an affordable price. We are a team of 6 at the moment, with complementary backgrounds, with core skills that we need to take this business to the next level. Perfect. Sorry. My background is management consulting and operations, and at Gartenzwerg, I also take care of supply chain and finance. Sabrina comes from an entrepreneurship background and marketing, also looking after product development and business development. And we have a very talented pool of software and hardware engineers working with us, trying to make the impossible possible. We're also very lucky to have a great team of mentors from different backgrounds, packaging, manufacturing, and technology that support us along the journey in any kind of issue we have. We have a very ambitious plan for the next 2 years. So where we are at right now, we have just reached 1,000 follow subscribers, as Sabina mentioned. We are now launching an Indiegogo campaign by the end of April, and we have pre-sales on our website as well. From there, we're targeting to get more feedback from our customers, improve our product to hopefully close the deal with our opportunity in Singapore. That's going to take us to the first million in revenues by the first quarter of 2019. And to get there, we're also looking into our next round of investment that we hope to close by July, August this year. So if anyone is interested to come on board, come and talk to us. And basically, we're going to use the next round to scale our business, increase, hire more people, and build our first distribution center. And yeah, launch in Germany by mid next year as well as part of our business strategy, overall strategy. In terms of financials, we're looking at 2.2 million million pounds in revenue, quarterly revenue by end of 2019. Our gross margins are pretty much in the garden 50% and the supply 70%, which gives us a very good margin to build a healthy business. And in the right-hand side, you can see it broke down in UK, Europe, and Singapore. So in case the opportunity in Singapore doesn't go as well as we expect, we're still looking at those numbers on the right-hand side on top.
So the big picture. At the beginning, it starts with a personal indoor garden, but there's so much we can do with it. Imagine everyone has a garden. It becomes as normal as having a fridge. Imagine you can share the food you grow at home. Imagine we can use our technology to give fresh food to people who live in harsh environments or in developing countries. And imagine we can make cities and contribute to make cities more sustainable and more self-sufficient.
And last but not least, what we're looking for today. So at this stage, we're looking for partners that want to deploy our units, restaurants or community gardens, retailers. We're also hiring a plant specialist. So if anyone knows anyone that's expert in horticulture would like to join our team, take care of our plants, they'll be very welcome as well. And for the next round, we're basically gonna use the investment for that specific areas, and we're looking to raise £1 million. So anyone that'll be interested to join our investors, please come and talk to us. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
You don't have a horticulturalist on? I don't know what's going on. There's nothing like hearing about us from a startup that's trying to raise pre-seed. Oh, yeah. Okay, questions, everybody? Questions? Nobody's got one at the back. Right. Let's get the microphones here.
Hello, how's it going? Great pitch. So where are you guys in terms of products? How close are you to manufacturing? How's all this coming together?
So we have our MVP already done. We are actually at the moment with IoT Tribe making another 30 units to give our beta testers to give us feedback and improve. We have just traveled also with the IoT Tribe to Southeast Asia to define our supply chain. We have some manufacturers aligned. We also have suppliers of wood that we're negotiating. So basically, we have already everything in place to start mass production. We're looking into mass produce our gardens by July this year and get them delivered by September, October in the UK.
Question there?
Yeah, you mentioned you were looking for partners. Can you just talk a little bit about, I suppose, the marketing strategy and actually who would be your perfect retailer or distribution channel?
Sure. So probably most of you will be a little bit surprised about that, but we are not necessarily targeting the very big ones. We actually, so for instance, think about the John Lewis, for instance. We are actually more interested in partner with smaller and medium-sized retailers who focus on lifestyle products, decor products, where it's about the experience of shopping. And we are not just one of many products that kind of get lost eventually in the maze. It can be, I don't want to say it's bad, but I think for our type of product, because it's new and people are not familiar about it, and there is a lot of education around needed, we need a place where people can see it, they can touch it, they really can experience how it works, and then this is hence why we are looking for these type of retailers to partner with.
So sort of upmarket Conran store or something?
Yes.
Not IKEA?
No.
Not
IKEA
right now.
actually happened, a lot of people say, oh, how about IKEA?
Yeah.
So I think they have a different business model. They do also have kind of their own mini garden that also works with hydroponics, but it's not a tech product. So we wouldn't really fit in there.
Not until they acquire you, I suppose. Any other questions? I've got a question. Does it work outside, or do you have an outside version?
So not yet, but there is a lot you can do. Nothing is impossible. So this first unit is for indoor, specifically for people living in large cities who maybe don't even have a balcony. I don't. So it's for people who would like to have a little garden in home. You could even grow in a basement if you wanted to. But this version wouldn't be so good for the outside because it might hurt the technology inside it.
Right. Final questions? Great. I'm disappointed to see that TechCrunch wasn't on your media slide there. We'll have to fix that. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Gartensberg. Right. Next up, let's hear now from ArmNet. ArmNet. It's got the word arm in it. With Simon Demalas. Over to you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Simone De Melas. I'm the CEO of ArmNet. What are you looking here is not the image of a terroristic attack. This is what can happen right now in front of your door house while digging in the wrong point. But fortunately, most of the time, we see something like this. You know why? Because in the last 35 years, the subsoils of our road were used to place all the networks that are fundamental now for our life. And there are a huge problem. We have a lack of share of information between the companies and a huge difference between the real status of the assets and the blueprints. This, added with a lack of a policy network, produced with a high cost of setup and maintenance infrastructure. So is there a solution? Yes, is ArmNet. ArmNet is an application that allows the field technician to see where and how the elements of a network are placed around the field technician. It can connect with the company database already existing, no proprietary system, can update the status of the network live from the field in real time. And ArmNet is not only a passive visualizer of information on the server, but can enrich and update the status of the corporate database in real time too. ArmNet is the solution to map the subsoil asset using the immediacy and the easily to use of AR with the powerful of GIS technology. We allow data to be used really quick in an efficient way live from the field. ArmNet allows to see the augmented reality, where the points are, to know all the technical detail of the apparatus before arriving to the point, to update via write reports or images, a so can update for the next work, and to add new points live from the field if I have an emergency. So which are the advantages for the company? We allow internal and external sharing of information because sometimes you want that your asset will be not damaged by other companies. We shorten the time of the field calls. We allow workers to work safer. We are cost effective, so we increase the total efficiency of the operations, and we reduce the impact on our citizens during the workload. Which is our market and target customer? Basically, everyone who owns and manages a network, so from the telecommunication to the multi-utilities, but also all the infrastructure provider like Ericsson and Italtel. About our competitor, we had just few because it's the really niche target market. Augview is our direct competitor, is a New Zealand startup, but we differ for a huge fact that we allow the company to use their own already existing smart Android smartphone, even the obsolete one. Our milestones are basic like this. In just June, while we entered in the IoT program, we signed a memorandum of understanding for a commercial partnership with Italtel that want to cross-sell this product to their customer. Actually, we are in engagement with two prospects. During the Q3, we are looking to develop it in a bigger way and to arrive at Q4 with a seed round. Now, I don't know how much time do I have, but I would like to show a quick demo, but I can skip it if it's too late. So this is just the recording of a screen, the smartphone, from the pilot test that we done in Rome, in Italy, with Telecom Italia. So it's really important to see that every point that you can see right now is not stored on the device. This is for a security purpose because most of the data are sensible. The field technician can just scroll down and scroll up, choose the point where you have to interview, or we can connect with a workforce management tool, see all the technical details, check other points, and for example, if something is out of the normal standard allow, in this case, the picture is not good, the field technician can just update a new one, shooting live from the field. And for another security purpose, the image, as we can see soon, is not immediately shared with no one, but just with the chief team that can moderate and approve, so he can deny or not if his data is good. Same can be done with write reports or a pre-filled form for reporting all the status of the work. Now, looking at the augmented reality part, we see that the platform is able to discriminate, even if the GPS the error is higher 1 meter, 2 points that are really close one from the other. We see different points. The points are queryable, so you can touch it, have a preview, and then go to the details tab after. And same can be done when we add a new point. So everything can be done in a quick way. I'm skipping the video, but I will be pretty more happy to show also a live demo after. If someone have any question?
Oh, have you finished? Right.
No problem.
I thought, fantastic. Yes, any questions? It's like, it reminds me of sort of industrial version of Blipper, which is probably a lot more useful than Blipper. Poor things. Go ahead.
Hi,
Sorry, Blipper.
Hi, Abraham Joseph from IoT Insights again. Maybe I'm particularly lacking in sleep or something, but where does the data come from that you have in the system?
Thanks for the question. The data comes from the corporate database. We are just, imagine that you are just like a new word. You have your data, you have your text word. We allow you to use in a more efficient way, in a more faster way, live from the field. But as I talked before about our competitor, they use in the same way, but the interface is really complicated. It's done for skilled engineer, for example. Our platform is studied because also the old man that works since 45 years for the same company can use it. So the data are the same one that the company already have.
Right, sorry, I would have thought like the gas works and Ericsson and the electricity guys, those would be like civil infrastructure, and that data wouldn't necessarily...
Sorry, I don't understand.
The data would be within like local councils and so on and so on.
Yeah, exactly. Data can come from the municipalities or from the corporate database, because every company has his own CAD project on, and they are geolocalized.
So yeah, pulling data and then it overlays onto this AR camera that then can show you. Anyone else? Got any other questions? Can I just ask a question? Have you deployed this with any customers or
yeah.
Who?
We started as a bootstrapped project, and we did an MVP and pilot test with Telecom Italia in Rome, where I come from. That ended in December 2017. Then in January, we started to do our own business developing. We signed, as I told, the partnership with Italtel, that is part of Exprivia Cisco group, actually. And we presented the product at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona last month, where we found these two prospects that are really interested to know more and go more deeply about the product.
So you've bootstrapped it, and are you raising?
No, not yet.
Not yet. You're yeah, we're cool. We don't need. Who needs money anyway? Whatever. So that's a clever, strategic way to behave as a startup. Well, okay. I mean,
thank you.
Think we're okay. Thank you very much. And last but not least, they will hear now from Kburn Health, ladies and gentlemen. So over to you. There are steps if you need them. Right.
Oh, microphone. Clicker. Is it good morning still? Quick show of hands. How many people here have elderly relatives or friends living at home at the moment? Put your hands up. You know they're well. You know they're safe. Here's the problem. An aging population worldwide, bed blocking, people not being able to put safely back into their homes. So, as populations age, more of them are living with long-term conditions. Most of them can't live in their own home because they're not safe. In terms of telehealth and telecare, both siloed, both services are run as a separate. Data and the Internet of Things doesn't exist as far as I'm concerned. I've worked in telehealth and telecare for a long time. In terms of social care, in terms of health, the move is to integrate the services. However, the data that's collected from people's homes is not integrated. I'll give you my clicker.
Right, so taking it on from there, the big benefit that we... Oh, hang on, I've got the wrong button.
As you can probably gather, we're more mature, so technology.
So go on. Which button? Oh, I'll do the rest without slides. So they're tremendous. Okay, and I'm aware that we're keeping you away from lunch. As Tom outlined, the big issue that faces people looking after the elderly, the infirm, those of us living with more than one long-term condition, is the context of the data that can be collected around health can't be viewed by clinicians in relation to the data around their home environment, whether they're going around their activities of daily living, whether they're getting up in time, whether they're taking their medication on time, whether the carers have come in and done what they should have done. We enable the clinical teams to see that data all together in one place. And we do that using off-the-shelf technology. We're not out building new boxes. We're not creating proprietary protocols, and we're not trying to lock in our customers to our own solution. What we've built is a platform. We're at minimum viable product at the moment. We've got a trial ongoing with the NHS in Scotland. We've got a go-to-market model that is based on partnership with large, capable SIs who can deliver at scale, on a country scale. Our business model is about providing the platform, the underlying capability. We're not building a monstrous corporation ready to roll trucks at any time. The uniques about our product are that we enable the subsequent users of the data to attach any device as long as it can be authenticated to the hub, which resides in the home, which is just an IoT gateway. It's an off-the-shelf gateway. That they can attach their devices very simply. They don't need to put a new hub in for every different requirement that the user has. And the original commissioner can then start to recover some of the cost of the service from subsequent providers. We can do this because we're a telecoms engineering team and we understand billing and fractional use of data streams. Who are we competing with? Well, here's the inevitable 4-box model with us in the top right corner. of course, everybody else is rubbish and we're marvelous. No, it's not quite true. There are some very large scale vested interests. There's a huge installed base of around about 2.3 million home monitoring devices, but they're analog, and they are owned by some of the companies that you might see on there. The new wave of small digital startups, almost 100% focused on single conditions and don't have any methodology to scale. We've built this in partnership with, as I say, the large company that I mentioned earlier, and so we are confident that we can deliver at a country scale. Bit about us, I mentioned we're telecoms engineers. I won't list all of us, but Tom and I are seasoned technology veterans in the comms world, as are our technical team. We've put some numbers up there, but frankly, the numbers are based on what we can deliver through our partners and what we can, the way in which we can access the health service market in the UK and internationally. Timelines, we're, as I say, at minimum viable product at the moment. We've cobbled together, I think is probably the best way of putting it, a hub and the Bluetooth and Z-Wave sensor environment, and we've got a hosted server-based solution at the moment. The reason we're standing here is to raise money for us to move to the second phase, which is a secure cloud-based platform. Obviously, it has to be hosted under the auspices of the NHS N3, and the successor to that. So we need around about £800,000 to complete that, and we are confident that we can deliver the numbers that I just put up there. So that's us. I guess we're open for questions.
Great, thanks. Great. Any questions? There's obviously a big societal need for this kind of thing. Number of solutions. There's a few solutions out there in the market, but nobody's cracked this, I don't think. Go ahead.
If you were to partner as part of your route to market, who would be the ideal partners for you guys?
Well, I guess from day one, the reason we are partnering and we're in advanced discussions with Atos, they are pretty much an ideal partner for us since they host and manage the Scottish NHS IT system, and they have a framework contract in place, which means that the commissioners don't need to go through a tender process if they want to buy directly from Atos. In future, we are looking to move internationally, and we're talking to a number of other similar scale SI partners who have the reach into the health services elsewhere. Obviously, different health systems are structured very differently. So yeah, the IBMs and Atos and Accentures of this world are our potential partners for this.
Another question here. This there. Yeah. Yeah. Did you put your you put your hand up? Yeah.
Hi, Abraham Joseph again. I'm interested in how you define the market, because I think within the healthcare, in the hospitals and so on, I can see a certain way in which the market might evolve, and similarly within the home. What assumptions did you make about how this problem in healthcare might get solved and the different players that might be involved over the next, 3-4 years?
That's a very good question, and it is quite intractable because it's a complex web of commissioning nonsense, frankly, at the moment with well, we now have a titular department for health and social care in the UK, and that's pretty unusual.
Can I say that a lot of the commissioning and the way it's done in England and Wales at the moment is going to be dismantled because basically it doesn't work. Scotland doesn't have a commissioning system the way you have in England and Wales. So from that point of view, Scotland's also ahead of integration between health and social care. So that's why we've focused our attention up there at the moment. Matt and I didn't mention, but obviously BT is going to start taking out analog lines. So the driver has to be to convert to digital.
The big compelling event is the 2025 analog switch off. So just to answer that exactly, there are increasingly tenders coming out for integrated health and social care monitoring provision, and that's in advance of the digital switchover. We're able to answer those RFPs and tenders with the right partner ecosystem in place.
Any final questions? Anyone? My quick question is, what do you think of some of the kind of off-the-shelf solutions that people are buying in the shops and trying to throw together themselves, to perhaps monitor their elderly relatives or give them an iPhone and sort of wonder if they've left the house? I mean, what do you think of all of that?
Well, there are some quite good point solutions. So,
yeah.
So absolutely, if your granny is okay with using a tablet and an iPhone, certainly my 90-year-old mother couldn't do that.
Yeah.
But they will cover elements of the market. There are certainly some good solutions for single ailments. So there are some good diabetes solutions, some good COPD solutions. But what there aren't are any solutions that have the breadth of capability and expansibility that we offer. Expandability, is that a word? Anyway,
sure.
Extensibility that we offer with this.
So you're going across the board, and you're capable of doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Great.
We're covering all the major conditions.
Excellent. Lovely. Thank you very much, Cayman Health. Thank you. I'll take that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it only leaves me to say thank you very much for coming today and seeing the pitches and the panels. Tanya Suarez from IoT Tribe, do you want to say a few words at the end? Come on up.
Actually, just very briefly, words of thanks. First of all, to our partners, Barnsley, Matt and Judy, and the rest of your colleagues just around the room. It's been a real pleasure, actually, delivering this up in your ecosystem, and we really hope that we can do this again soon. John, Capital Enterprise, also all your help in helping the startups, particularly understanding the fundamentals of attracting investors, and the team. So Brendan, Maria, Luca, and all the team who aren't here, and Petra and her team who've helped get this event. But mostly to the startups, because you've really put your all into the program, and we've seen the difference from when we first saw your fresh faces in January, and I think the picture is a testament to everything you've achieved. So we really look forward to continuing to work with you moving forward. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, everybody. Grab a coffee, network. Grab a coffee and network. Thank you.